Deciding freely over how you're going to live your life, when you're working, and what you're going to work with was one of the main reasons for us to move to a small farm in the middle of Norway. The countryside seemed the most natural way to avoid the blur of a life in the office and shift most work hours outside. But to actually live an outdoor life in such a place, you still need to balance down payments on the loan, expensive repairs, living costs, paid work, and bringing an old farm back to its former glory. For those of you that are new to our small place in mid-Norway, my name is Till, and that's Thea, my girlfriend. About a year ago, we bought a small farm in the countryside with the aim of a less dependent and more physical life, with most of our time spent outdoors. Right now it's winter here, a season that isn't many people's favorite. And although it's rather dark and cold, the preparations for the next year don't take breaks.
The temperatures are down to -8 Celsius now.
The autumn weather in this county had been one to forget. It's been by far the highest amount of precipitation we've seen since moving to Norway 4 years ago. There wasn't much hiking to do without rubber boots, but every now and then you could still get a few good sun hours on top of the mountains. November is typically the month in Norway when you can really feel the darkness settling in and your energy levels start to decline. There isn't much you can do to avoid that fully, but staying active and spending as much time as you can outdoors, with a little bit of natural light, definitely helps to keep your circadian rhythm somewhat in check.
You should carry the camera.
We should.
Even at this point of the year, the weather wasn't showing many signs for winter to arrive, so there was plenty of time to get things ready for the first snow. When you're moving to a small farm in Norway, there aren't particularly many income sources in the beginning, especially if you aren't a big-time landowner. But one of the more promising projects is sprouting and raising trees. Despite the harsh climate, we tried us on a few sweet chestnuts and black walnuts, and so far the germination rate has been good enough to assume some future potential.
Oh, this one we can actually eat.
While the trees spent their first winter inside, the beds got covered with cardboard and will be ready to be used again in spring. this is how the better plants are looking. See, it's quite a few artichokes, or Jerusalem artichokes, on there. It's obviously a bundle of plants, but this already should be maybe 400 grams. A bit better growing than the potatoes even. Feel my arms. Electricity prices can be quite notorious in Norway. While the country is more than self-sufficient in production, price can still go up by 400% from summer to winter. Even though our house only has heating in the ground floor, the largest monthly bill last year was still $400. So firewood is rather important to us, and before the snow settles, we make sure to also have the backup stash in the barn. It's the 19th of November now. The snow has settled in. I would call this the first real day of snow of the year. About 10-15 centimeters. And the next week or 2 weeks are supposed to get rather cold. Do you enjoy the snow? Do you enjoy the snow? Yes. This year hasn't been particularly easy financially, like pretty much all the others before, but despite a critically bad period in spring, it turned out alright overall. With a variety of jobs, from starting the nature education course company to digging the biodiversity pond and planting the hedgerow, as well as a bit of film and photo production, guiding, ad revenue and stock footage royalties, I could at least pay the bills. And what might seem pretty stressful and demanding in some periods is actually the freest way of working and living I know in others. The fog is starting to rise over the field as well. Now when the ground is a little warmer and the air temperature gets colder, it looks even more mystical. Ooh, a little warm. It's pretty good, I can tell you. A hot bath outside. Oh, it doesn't have any hot springs, so kinda need to build your own. When the snow came, it was rather cold, so the trees are quite loaded now, making it the most aesthetic winter in the forest. It's amazing how silent it gets when the first layer of snow is covering the landscape. Not much left to hear except the branches cracking under your boots. And as long as it stays in the -1 to -5 range, it's quite enjoyable outside if you wear the right clothes. Just below it can get a bit tough for the breathing. This is the winter magic that I was speaking about in the last video. What a great time to be outside.
It's getting colder now. This night already went down to -10, and I think the coming one should be even lower.
We're spending every morning coffee out here on the porch. It's a very nice way for me to start the day outside. Yuki can eat something, and depending on how bad the weather is, you can find shelter in different positions here. Now it's just the cold and no wind, so pretty easy way of just sitting in the open.
The pond has his first layer of ice on. I'm sure it's not going to be that thick though. The moose came by for a visit, but now they normally come in the dark, so it's very hard to get them on the camera. The 21st of November is officially the first day with ice on the lake. I'm not so sure if it's any thicker than 1 or 2 centimeters, but it looks like it's covering the majority already.
The temperatures are down to -8 Celsius now. Very crisp air. In the next 2 days there should be loads of snow coming, so then it's over with the no wind atmosphere.
You need to be careful with the ice. You see the crack right in front of you, right?
hearing the woodpecker over there?
Wonderful to have the real winter back.
Oh, they're already growing. Yeah. Too early.
The foundation of this part of the house is unfortunately also very wet, so we need to get the drainage done there as well. But the heat pump is something I didn't really want to mess with in winter, so we're actually gonna have a company doing that. The digger is already parked up here by the post box, and I have a feeling like we're having a bit too many of them around the farm this year. When I'm moving the snow up the street, he's a bit concerned that I'm going on a walk without him. So he's just sitting and waiting. Hey? You kinda need to stay a bit on top of the snow moving here. The snowblower only gets through 20 centimeters until it gets quite much of a chore. But last year we only used it 5-6 times. This year we already had much more snow and much milder weather.
Yuki, come here. Come here. Come. Come. Good boy. I just released you. Don't need to take off yet. Yeah.
One of the most important ways to keep costs low on a farm is by utilizing resources from the ground you own. Sadly, most properties that come to the market in Norway are stripped of their initial lands in order to create fewer, bigger farms that can keep up with the demand for large-scale production. Our farm only has 2 hectares of grazing land left, so wood self-sufficiency isn't coming anytime soon. The only thing we cut on the field this year was a few dying mountain ash trees. They were initially meant to join the firewood pile, until I decided to give some pieces a second chance. Wonderful color of this wood. The first one didn't turn out particularly well. The wood in the handle, when I was still sawing it into shape, was a bit too weak to hold up. But the second one turned out much better. Much better choice of wood. I learn. And I think it turned out alright for the second ever attempt. Definitely usable in the kitchen, and it's therefore our first local mountain ash wooden spatula, replacing some of the plastic that we're still having. It has something rather satisfying to make your own stuff, especially if you have the resource directly on the field here. It's day 3, and the hole is nearly filled up again. This guy is also slightly more effective than me standing there with a shovel. It's quite a crater now. Has been looking a bit more idyllic before. Well, next year it's gonna be grown over at least. And we are definitely going to have enough material if we're gonna need anything for any other projects.
Doesn't look so nice at the moment.
No.
When we moved here a bit over a year ago, this part of the ground floor in the barn wasn't usable for much more than storing the trailer and firewood. Now that the silos are gone and the holes are filled with gravel, light was the main issue before starting to think about concrete flooring in the coming spring. We're most likely going to use the outer part as a gym, but aiming to have the flooring done in a way that it would be suitable for livestock later on, if we would change our mind. The bottom beam there is completely rotten. You see, there is not much structural integrity left here. Nail in here. What you are seeing now is how the ice and winter normally looks like at the end of November. The farm is at 139 meters above sea level, and temperatures frequently reach below minus 10 degrees Celsius. In a normal year, the beginning of December is usually when we are going ice fishing and ski across the lake. Not in 2024 though. We had less than a handful of cold days, and whenever there was one, the ice wasn't solid enough to span it on the lake, so the indoor work went on as usual.
It's the 3rd of December now. We got a bit fresh snow and it started to be rather cold again with -6, so you really need to work yourself warm to get the mittens off. With those projects like the window today, the days can get a bit long if you at least want to get it somewhat done. And after a while of working, it doesn't feel that productive anymore. Your work gets worse, concentration leaves you, and you just really don't necessarily want to rev it up. But after all, I would always exchange a not so good afternoon for the feeling of being at least partially done at the end of the day. Those beams were some real fine work. It's a bit of a shame to cut them out, but without a door in here, it's not really so usable. A little bit of refinement here with the concrete cutter, and then it should be somewhat level. The rest we are going to fix with the wood on top.
Once the windows were in place, the next step was to clean things up and get an overview of the existing flooring for the very first time to be able to make a plan on how to level it in the most efficient manner.
This is just willow, so it will probably fly apart like paper. Yeah, not much force needed here. Every time I'm going around here, I have to dig under these pipes. And it's this one task that I just never tackled. Today's the day. Get this a little easier than it is now. It's the connection to the old grain silo that was feeding the turkeys when this barn was last in use. We actually got quite some metal pieces here from the sealer removal. I think they're going to be of use somewhere, just don't know when yet. If we're ever getting a horse, one hoof is safe. I can at least see that I'm making a new handle for this old hammer head. It has suffered a bit over the years, but it might still do the job. If it has a handle. Now it's only this corner left here. Not much there, except a few old tools, some wooden skis that do start to split in the front, and some rocks behind me. I'm not so sure if this is all usable anymore. Always good to have a bag of old cat sand. Probably for oil spills. Maybe they're just for decoration in the upper floor of the barn. My father and brother-in-law were quite successful hunting and got a deer calf. Luckily they already have enough meat, so I got 4 legs to try myself on a few different flavors of smoking this year. But the first step stays the same. I'm basically just going to spread the legs out as evenly as I can.
and then cover them with salt until they're completely buried. This one's a bit long. And then leave it out here for 3 days. This is by far the heaviest snow we had so far. It was supposed to come down as rain, and even though it is plus 1 degree now, it's snowing. Let's see if the rain comes afterwards or if it's gonna be a lot of work tomorrow morning moving this. What do you think, Papu? Is it gonna stay? The quite miserable weather this year gives you at least the excuse to work on the more indoorsy tasks. The spatula got finished, got a few coatings of linseed oil, and one last one with walnut oil. Now it should be ready for use, and it's actually the first thing that was manufactured on the farm.